Well, hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Ramos Law Difference Makers podcast, where your host, myself, Dr. Jim Hoven, gets to meet with cool people every single week. And this is no exception. Today, I have a young lady as a guest who is doing incredible things in one of the most needed areas that we have across our country right now, and probably throughout time, but really accentuated right now, which is mental health, mental wellness, and overall well-being. And so to have her on it as a guest today is going to be a spectacular. Please sit down, take notes, and take note of what we're going to talk about, because again, critically important topic, couldn't be better timing. And so without further ado, I want to introduce Miss Tori Carroll. Tori, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yes, we've been talking for a little bit, right? And I know that between you and Bailey and all, we have some connections that we've had together, and we've had a chance to spend a little bit of time, but never like this. So I am super excited to learn more about your journey into mental wellness, mental health, and coaching, and bringing others along that path. So as we start this episode, I want to hear your story about why mental health. How did you get the passion or the connection with mental health that said that's where you want to go with your life?
Of course. So it actually started, I was a very lucky person to kind of have the idea for my whole career at the time I was 17. I know most people it's not the case, but at 17, I had some amazing mentors who guided me in being a good person and caring about others and valuing the things that are more important than just math and science. And that stuff is important, but I learned the value of friendship, mentorship, and connection. So it was especially valuable for me because my home life was a bit challenging in high school. And because I had great mentorship and great adults to look up to, I was okay, and I am able to live an amazing, wonderful life and have great relationships. So ultimately, I started out with the plan to do counseling and therapy when I was 18, and I started college. My minor was addiction treatment, and my major was psychology. So I really just loved the brain, neuroscience. Still, I'm just a geek for it. Mm-hmm. And even when I'm hanging out with friends, it's rare that I don't bring out one mental health fact on my days off. But hey,
mental health trivia.
Yeah. But it's just so applicable to day-to-day life that it's just a beautiful field.
Yes.
As I was progressing through my career during school, I realized that social work was a great option for me to not only love the brain, love mental health, but be in action. So I chose social work to be in action. I had considered psychology doctorate, but ultimately a lot of career paths end up in any university. When I was craving that really field work and getting to meet people that need some extra support.
Well, let me just stop you right there, because the story is getting compelling, and I don't want to lose where my train of thought is right now.
Of course.
It's 17, you have a challenging home life, and you find mentors. How does a 17-year-old go about finding mentors? Because interestingly enough, you said at 17, it was where you kind of turned the light bulb turned on for you, where mental health is a place where I might want to spend my life. Mm-hmm. I was right at that same age when I knew that chiropractic was a place that I could spend my life. And obviously, I'm still licensed and still treat, but it's not what I do every day, mm-hmm. but it's still such a deep part of my DNA. So first of, how did you find these mentors at 17? Where did they come from? Because that's a big lesson that I think we can share with everybody. Mentors are critical at all of our ages, but man, when we find them young, it's really, really big piece of life. So talk about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I went to a very small school. I had 40 people in my graduating class. 3 people got expelled at the end, so
so 37.
Which actually made a big impact on the class size. But so I went to a very small school, so my teachers knew me, which was huge. I had close relationships. They knew my name. I'd known them for years, so that made me feel seen and heard and all of that. I also was very involved in extracurriculars, so I was in sports, so I played softball for 9 years. So I had coaches. And then I progressed during high school really heavily into our musical programs. So I was on choir team, show choir. My school had a worship team that I was heavily involved in. And so musicals, I was always in the musical. So I developed really strong relationships in those settings, especially because the teachers and the people in charge of that were the same people in all of the musical areas.
Okay.
So that's what I kind of really pushed into and leaned into in high school. And they were the ones who showed up for me in a way that I needed at that time, whether they even know or not. So.
Wow. Have you ever taken the time to go back to them and send them notes or tell them what they meant to you at that time?
Yes, I have. I have for a couple people in my life, because especially now being someone who's in the field of social work and mental health and mentorship and all of that, it's very rare that you see the results of all your kind actions and stuff.
Yes.
So I definitely value that and am intentional about saying things that I believe and saying what people have meant to me out loud. It's a huge piece of, it's a value for me that I make sure to put in action often.
Yeah, I agree with you. You know, I had this same thought of, and it's been, I think 2 years ago now, where there was a coach in high school that just meant so much to me, because I went through one, and I've told this story on the show before, but I had one high school teacher. So I went to a small school too, same size, you know, small Christian school in Denver here, and graduating class in the 30s. So same kind of thing, right? And I had one teacher that when he found out I was going to be a chiropractor, he said, hey, you know what? You can't even get through trig. How are you going to ever become a doctor? I had that guy.
Yikes.
And then I had one teacher who was our football coach. And that guy just was always, you know, he might get on me a little bit on the field, you know, on what I needed to do and all that, but he knew how to work with me. And it made such an impact that 2 years ago, I reached back out to him and I said, man, thank you so much. You don't know what your example meant to me, and you believing in me. And, you know, if you wouldn't mind, tell me what you saw in me at that time. Because I wanted to look back and get that perspective of what a young Jim Hoven was like to his mentor, right?
Yeah,
what did it look like?
course.
And it was a fascinating experience for me. So the fact that you've done the same thing is, I think there's something to talk about there with us connecting with our past, both in the tough times and in the good times. What do you think about that?
I think it's one of the most beautiful pieces of life in general. My favorite topic in all of life, mental health, everything is resilience. So resilience is overcoming adversity and being stronger from it. And the biggest key to that is that you can't be stronger from it if you don't go through the adversity first. So you can't achieve resilience, which is your ability to cope with challenging situations, your ability to not get emotionally flooded when things aren't going your way, your ability to cope with sadness, happiness, all of those amazing emotions in life. Resilience makes you it's a common sense word, but it makes you flexible.
Yes.
And the only way to get that is through adversity. And that sucks.
Yeah.
It really sucks. But the people who have been through adversity and are stronger from it, and it hasn't defined them or destroyed who they think they can be, because that does happen if resilience doesn't come out of adversity. But the people who it does, it is the most beautiful thing, I think, in existence of life. So I never see adversity as something that's to be avoided and just negatively thought about, because it can bring the most beautiful thing in someone.
Well, I'll tell you, when you brought up adversity, it brought something to mind that I want to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole here. There are different types, just like there are different types of leaders, right? I'm sure you've seen this not only in your professional career, but your athletic career and your academic career. There are people that are driving leaders, and they're just going to taskmask you, and you better get it done. And then there are people that are soft leaders that you connect with them and you see them work too, but they act a different way. And there's the leader, ideally the leader that like I would like to be, is to know what the person that I'm leading needs, and lead them in the way that they need, versus being one size fits all leader. You know, I would like to lead to the competencies and the weaknesses of my team. That being said, in dealing with adversity and coaches, I love to watch every day. I have my own morning routine, and, it's very strict, very regimented, and it never changes. And part of that is a personal growth section for me every single day. And I'm doing it, and it might be 20 minutes, but it might be a few things within that. And so there's a guy who you may or may not have heard of. His name is David Goggins. And David Goggins is a hardcore ex-military, running down the street. Yeah, I'm on mile 27. you little sissies, if you think that pain doesn't matter, then you know what, you're wrong. Like, that's his way of motivating people to get it done. And certain people really gravitate to that. On the other side, there's a guy his name is Shi Heng Yi, and he is the head of the Buddhist Europe chapter of the monastery, of the whole monastery. He's the head of it. And he, on the other hand, would say, in his beautiful broken English, we all have to go through our challenges, and you get to choose how you want to accept it. Because, we all grow in the mud. So how do you want it? So you have these two opposite ends of trying to get the same thing. And it's interesting, as you work with people every day, are you seeing that they do respond to how to deal with adversity from different resources or coaching?
Yes. So my one-on-one coaching clients, they go through a program called Energized and Optimized, the 90-day method to conquering perfectionism. And I created that whole curriculum based on mental health science, corporate statistics. It's intended for professionals who are really pushers and really love to be busy and love to stack their to-do list and are really fulfilled by that, but want to be better at the important areas of life, like their relationships. Like I know some people who are those hustlers have trouble sleeping and have some perfectionistic tendencies that are really hurting them long term. And so I created this program to make that kind of hustle, amazing, busy life sustainable and healthy, because that's me. I also just love having a stacked schedule, and I'm really fulfilled by just busyness. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that unless it turns into a toxic realm. So with my one-on-one coaching clients, I really have a strong push towards anti-perfectionism. That's the root of the whole program.
So define that for me.
Sure.
Define perfectionism. We all know what it is, but from the deeper science perspective, because some people might not think of themselves as perfectionists. I am not a perfectionist in a lot of things, but I am very driven. And so I don't know that I would fall into that definition. So would you define that for us?
Yeah, for sure. And that's something I've been noticing is I don't think people always recognize where it shows up in their life. So Western culture really pushes perfectionism. The whole individualist community kind of mentality is, I do it myself. I don't ask for help. I do it to the best of my ability all the time. Every day I'm optimum. And it's just not real. There's no way you can be your best self every single day. And the problem is when you aren't your best self, the shame that often follows. The shame to know I submitted something that wasn't my best. I should have done this. If I got more sleep, I would have had a better speaking tone or whatever. Whatever it is, sometimes people don't realize that it's perfectionism. And it doesn't really matter if you were 2% better. What matters is that now you're being destroyed by shame. And that's so problematic. Because shame, guilt, those emotions are so hard on the body physically. Cortisol is flooding through your body and brain, which cortisol is the stress hormone that releases with anxiety, depression, it's commonly seen. But cortisol is actually neurotoxic, so it kills your brain cells. And so if you are living a life that is high stress, if you are commonly feeling a lot of shame and these negative, heavy emotions and not coping with them quickly, the long-term impacts of cortisol being just flooded through the body for a long amount of time is super, super problematic and can cause and lead into some other mental health issues, like developing maybe anxiety or depression, or just being unfulfilled and not understanding why.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned some of the cortisol levels and some of the bio and neurochemical things that go into our states of happiness or a lack of happiness, even leading to depression. Have you ever heard of a guy named Andrew Huberman, Dr. Andrew Huberman?
No.
So he's going to become one of your newest, best resources.
Awesome.
I am now
Yay.
addicted to this guy, right? He puts out a podcast, and I just shot some videos yesterday on that we do for a thing called Health Matters here at the law firm. And he's a big basis for a lot of the stuff that I'm sharing now. And he has this podcast called the Huberman Lab. Now, he's a professor of neurosciences or neurobiology at Stanford. And then he's also a professor of optometry. So the eyes and the brain, that's where he lives. And it's all his lab does is people subjects. So no animal testing, all people testing. And he talks about the importance of light, literally daylight, and the light hours that you get, and how it affects your circadian rhythms, how it affects your dopamine release, serotonin, how it dives into these feel-good chemicals and feelings. But then just in a recent episode he just did, he talked about the importance of dealing with traumas, right? Either one-time traumas, big event traumas, or small local traumas that happen again and again and again, and the flood of chemicals that happens to that. And there's techniques that he talks about that have science, peer-reviewed papers behind them that help people get through them. Many of them, obviously, you need a person like yourself who's trained in negotiating, navigating the process. And some of them are breathing techniques. And so tying all that together to help people, it makes a big deal, because we don't know when we have a cortisol dump other than how we feel. And so I think I would like you to talk about that for a minute, feelings. So from where I sit, and again, I have nowhere the education in what you're talking about as you do, but I use our emotional, the feelings that we have as like an emotional guidance system was something that I read, and I like that term, where if I feel something in my solar plexus, in my gut, in my heart area, take note what that feeling is. If it's something bad, then I can assume that there's some cortisol hit coming on the other side. Whereas if I feel something good, that could be some adrenaline, noradrenaline, epinephrine, dopamine, like all these things could be coming on this side. But people don't want to know all that. They just want to know how they feel. Talk about feelings. Talk about what that means for you as a professional in this area.
Yeah, for sure. So I was realizing so I have always really loved fitness and exercise and yoga and all of that stuff. And so I would say that I have fairly good body awareness. I can tell when my body feels off center. So once I started really diving into mental health science and learning how it's connected to the body, it's so helpful. I really like that you brought up paying attention to areas of your body that you're feeling a certain emotion, because that's really helpful, especially when you're starting to dissect areas that you're having challenge. So if you notice that every time you walk into work, your heart starts to beat fast, your shoulders rise up, your heart or your shortness of breath is occurring, you are experiencing stress every single time you walk into your job. And you may be wondering, I've been so stressed out, I think I might need some support. Well, you might not realize that your work is a trigger for you, because your body is freaking out every time you walk in. So if you maybe adjust either how work is going for you, or you can maybe get a new job, you might actually decrease your anxiety symptoms just because your body told you what was going on, even if you didn't recognize that you were unhappy at your job.
So let's say this. I love that. Let's go down this path a minute.
Yeah.
So now you have that job. And let's just say you don't have the ability to just go get another job in your short-term future. What would you give as tips for someone who might feel that sense of anywhere from dread to, man, I feel tense every time I'm coming to work? What would be some tips that might help them?
Yeah, for sure. So if it was one of my coaching clients, that would be the easiest way to go through it, because you just get the one-on-one complete customization. Every single person is different, and every body is different. Every brain is different. And everyone's brain wiring is different. So to have a blanket statement is just not going to work. But if someone came to me and said that this is what they're experiencing, I'd say, okay, so you notice that you're feeling these, the shortness of breath, your heart rate's going up when you're walking in the building. Are you having hesitancy of going inside to see people? Is it socializing? Because some people just might have social anxiety. Do you experience this when you go to parties? Do you experience this when you go to the gym? Or is this just at the job? So then if they said it's pretty much just at the job. Okay, so throughout your day, are you experiencing that feeling other times? We have my boss walks up to me. Well, that's kind of a natural thing. If your boss is walking up to meet you, your body's natural response is to get a little worked up, and that's totally natural. So I don't want to be like, oh, you must hate your boss, let's get going. I want to help normalize some of the natural experiences that your body goes through day to day. Anyways, if it's debilitating, then it may be a more serious problem. But yeah, so I would just keep asking more questions to notice patterns. If they aren't able to provide those just by having a conversation, I would have them start tracking it. So I would say, okay, I'm going to give you a little worksheet, and you're going to mark off every time that you feel that at work. I want you to write down what happened, like if there's a specific situational trigger, what you were doing, who was around, what time of day. Sometimes it's time of day. Maybe you're anxious because you just finished your third cup of coffee on your drive, and your body is physically
You're hyped up.
Yeah, hyped up. So I really don't want to create problems that aren't problems. I want to normalize the normal body emotions. But if there's any distress occurring, if there's just a want for more peace in their life, that's enough. And then we can dissect it. But with my coaching program, I really listen to what struggles they specifically are having, and I create customized worksheets, plans for that on top of the curriculum that's pretty much set in stone, that has some of the more specific, like this is how stress works in the body. This is the nervous system and how it works and why it's designed this way. And so there's some set stuff, but I'm really passionate about just hearing what are you going through and how can we break it down, identify patterns, and then make this better. Right.
And so when you come to the individual side of stuff, and I know, we've talked I want to dive more into the programs in a minute, but on a general sense, when let's say you're meeting with me as an individual and you say, all right, Jim, what are you feeling? What's going on? Or how much time do you put into my diet and my sleep and my exercise? What part do those play? Because to me, mental health, and maybe if I'm seeing this different, please let me know. To me, mental health has so much to do with how we expend energy and how we create energy. Well, our energy is created from the food we put in, and our energy is dispersed by the effort we put out, right? Like there's constant, and we need enough fuel for the output. And then sleep is the thing that ties those together. Is that something that, as part of your practice, that you would coach me on to?
Yes, for sure. I am very whole person centric. I think that if you are experiencing anxiety and you are in a toxic relationship, they might be connected. I think that if you haven't been drinking enough water and you feel lethargic, they might be connected. So I fully support the whole person model. It's the basis for everything I do. I do think that people don't, not always. I have noticed that some people have trouble identifying that in themselves. So I don't start with that because it seems to be counterproductive, actually, because people are trying to verbalize something that they realize they don't know how to in a lot of cases. So once we go through it takes about 4 sessions before we dive into a wellness inventory, which is where they really talk about the physical wellness that occurs in their life. So drinking enough water, nutritious foods, how often they exercise, how good does their just body feel on the day-to-day. That's a piece of the wellness inventory. It's also, that's physical wellness, emotional wellness, spiritual wellness, which could just be, that's not related to religion, but it can be for some people. So just, like 5 areas of wellness is the wellness inventory. And that's really where I assess their whole person model, and we can dive in. But I don't usually feel like they're ready for that until they've developed some language, they've developed some understanding of the mind-body connection and all of that.
Interesting point. When I know I'll just put myself in the category of a wannabe achiever. Like to me, that's important.
Yeah.
One of the things that is really critical for me in the physical, in the professional, every part of my life is metrics, goals, whatever we want to say, benchmarks.
Yes.
So with what you said, you start by assessing me, find out where I'm at, where are my strengths, where are my weaknesses, what are my trigger points. And then you do this inventory after 4 visits of this wellness assessment. How do you, as a professional in this area, benchmark? Do you give me things to work on where I'd say, okay, I want to see if I can improve my stress level, my perceived stress level score from a 7 to a 4 in the next 4 weeks? Like, what kind of metrics do you look for, or what that people listening or watching should look for?
Yeah. So, so research shows that 90-day goals are the most impactful because they are long enough to see bigger change, but they aren't so long to where you get discouraged. So it's a good starting point for people who are wanting to start setting goals. So the first session that I have with my clients. Well, first session is welcome. So I basically break down what coaching looks like. A lot of people don't know what it is, and but it's been around forever. So I break down what it looks like. But then the second session is when we do a full 90-minute session diving into their 90-day goals. So first we assess different areas of life through like a activity. And then that helps give them the mental, like the vision of what they want.
Clarity and vision.
Clarity.
Yeah.
Clarity on what they want to pick for their 3 goals that they'll do with me. So we set the 3 goals. They are action. So they set a goal that is actionable, timely, all of the smart things. Everybody knows that. But yeah, so we set those 90-day goals, and we set specific tasks that have a due date. And then we do rewards, because rewards are so important for your brain to connect that dopamine rush, boom, when you achieve something. It's just positive reinforcement and will help you be more successful. If you try to do goals without rewards, it's going to be very challenging. You got to trick your brain a little bit. So anyways, yeah, we start out with the 90-day goals, and we keep track of that throughout the whole 90 days we're together. But at the start of the whole program, they do a pre-test, and at the end they do a post-test. I'm so a nerd about statistics, and I want actual data that this is working. I don't want to just be saying, yeah, I have a great program that reduces stress, and no one has told me that. So yeah, the pre-test and post-test measures things like how is your stress level, how often do you prioritize your self-care in your life, how's your day-to-day mental health feel, more specific questions than that, but it does measure the success, and my programs have thus far always shown success with the clients I've worked with on those really important outcomes.
With your training, you have a master's in social work. With what you do for your clients, and I understand you work individual, you also work kind of a group setting, especially for corporate stuff. When you're looking at that, the way your style has developed, are you working within the model of your training, or have you then taken pieces from outside whatever master social work curriculum would be in order to bring a different slant, a different bent to it? If so, can you differentiate those for us? Like what you would use from a classical training model, and then some cool tools that you might have learned to help layer on top of that?
For sure. So when COVID started, I had been working at a nonprofit for about 3 years as a community educator.
What does that mean? So
in that role, I was educating people on mental health topics, like just like the science of it, basic stuff, just leadership skills, healthy relationships, healthy self-esteem. Those were so I did that for 3 years, and it was super meaningful, and I loved the work of educating. And I realized when COVID happened that people don't have this information. I thought it was common sense because I've been studying psychology since I was 18.
Yes.
So I thought everybody knew, oh yeah, deep breaths work because you're literally using science to slow your nervous system down. You're not just doing it because it's like, oh, it's something that woo-woo people like to do. No, it's science. And so when I started to realize, oh my gosh, COVID happened, people were losing it, and they didn't have the tools that I thought were common sense. And so that's when I transitioned into starting my own business, because I realized, oh my gosh, this information needs to get out there, because professionals that, especially the high achievers that I like to work with, they're at risk for, depression, anxiety, suicide. It's real stuff that we're dealing with here. And if they have the tools, they may not get to that point. And so that's why I started my business, is because of that whole thing. So to answer your question, I use that community education, which was a little bit different than my academic education, because I learned how to be relatable to people, to hear what people are actually going through, to think about how people's brains actually work, and in real life, how to make mental health science translate. So, so the 3 facets of my business are the one-on-one coaching, which is my favorite. I just love working with people and hearing their stories and really helping them make choices that they want for themselves. They just need a cheerleader is the biggest thing. And sometimes a little kick in the butt, which I'm good at too.
Break out the boot.
Yep. But so that's the first facet. The second facet is public speaking. I love to speak at events and really get this information out there, especially because of the climate we're in right now mentally. It's been so challenging the past few years for professionals. So, and it wasn't good before COVID either. So that's a huge passion of mine as well. And then the third thing is the corporate support, where I go in and I have a few options to support corporate staff, whether that's small group workshops, whether that's one-on-one coaching for staff that's a little bit shortened and streamlined. So yeah, depending on which zone I'm in, it does impact a little bit of the style. Like the corporate might have a little bit more of a productivity focus, like fulfillment in the workplace, comfortability and communication, all of that kind of stuff. But the one-on-one coaching can be like, you want to show up better in your marriage? Let's do it. Like, let's figure out why you feel unsatisfied in that situation, and we can work through it. So yeah, that's
I like it.
Thank
I like
you.
it.
Yeah.
I was looking through your website last night and I saw something that I wrote down and I want you to explain it to me. Talk to me about this concept of gaining energy while relaxing, because you can put them on a seesaw where you're doing one or the other. And what I'm hearing you say, it's almost like we have a Tesla, right? And we really love the car. And one of the cool features of the car is when you're decelerating, you're literally recharging the battery. So it decelerates the car without having to put the brakes on at all. So decelerating is recharging. So at one time it's relaxing and recharging at the same time. That's how I picture it. But explain that concept as it works for you and your clients.
That is a very good analogy for how it works. So people are often sustaining a level of high stress of negative self-talk where they are just on edge. I feel like is the best way to describe it. Pretty much chronically. And so my program really helps them realize that their body is in that state, whether they recognize it or not. And so by using specific tools, doing things that you love, doing things that are fun for you for no reason and no productive value, all sorts of, so there's 6 domains of self-care. People don't realize it's not just taking a bubble bath and calling it good. And that's why people have trouble connecting with self-care as a modality, I believe. But the 6 domains are mental. So that's mental stimulation, like reading books, doing things that challenge your brain and improve or just kind of work it. The second domain is physical. Yeah. So physical health, as we just discussed earlier, it's so important. If you're not drinking enough water, if you're not getting your exercise in, if you aren't getting enough sleep, that's a problem and will cause your body distress. The third is emotional. So that's where the mental health stuff comes in. So are you doing things that, like journaling is a good way to emotionally work things out. Therapy, talking on the phone with a trusted friend, those kind of things are emotional. Then there's productive, which I don't think people like this self-care, but an actual domain of self-care is to be productive. So it's to clean out your closet. It's to go get your oil change that you've been putting off.
Outside of work.
Yes.
Productivity outside of work.
Well, I mean, if it's a task that's nagging at you, it can actually be considered self-care.
Okay.
So if you're like, oh, I'm so stressed out, I just need to have a bubble bath. Well, you might actually benefit from knocking off your oil change and cleaning out your closet more than, and you will feel less stressed afterwards than if you just took a bubble bath, because productivity can be a self-care form.
Yes, I know it is for me. Super important for me.
Yeah. So then the next one is, this is trivia for me.
So we got mental, physical, emotional, and productive.
And then spiritual. So that can be meditation, that can be prayer, that can be going to church, that can be connecting to something bigger than yourself, basically is what that means. And it needs to be integrated into your life because of that stillness and that calmness that comes from it. It can't be replaced. So yeah, spiritual. And then the last one is, oh no.
And if nothing else, it'll come to you.
Yes,
but
it will.
I do want to go a little bit into the spiritual side, because I was thinking about this earlier during our conversation. There are a lot of people that are really behind meditation. They're all about meditation and the impact, the physical impact. And, I can't cite any of the papers, but I know there's a lot of peer-reviewed stuff out there about meditation. What do you think about meditation? And is there a standard practice that you've seen successful? Because just like there's 1,000 gurus out there on meditation. There's 1,000 ways to do it. So, some simple way that you would suggest people get the benefits of meditation.
For sure. So as we've talked about, people who are chronically on edge and stressed out, they aren't taking moments to let their body decompress. So meditation is very science-based. It's centuries old, which shows you something. But so basically how it works is it causes your nervous system to slow down. So our nervous system is wired how it's in rest and digest, and
fight or flight.
So fight or flight and rest and digest. So we as a culture are pretty much running in fight or flight frequently, which means that your body is flooded with cortisol, norepinephrine, which is the adrenaline hormone. So you basically are just on edge all the time. And that mechanism in our bodies is amazing and helpful because it's for survival. Ultimately, that's supposed to be activated if you hundreds of years ago were hunting and then a lion shows up. You're supposed to be like, oh my gosh, scary, and be able to have the maximum physical abilities. Your heart rate goes up, makes you quicker, makes you more
you're more seeing stuff. You could pay close attention, seeing details to get away and keep your life going.
Yes. But long term, it's not meant for that. Your body is meant to be in rest and digest more than it's meant to be in fight or flight. It's supposed to be a short-term process. But because of how culture is wired today, we are living in fight or flight just nonstop. And some people aren't coming down from it ever. So they're having sleep problems, they're having digestive problems, all related to that fight or flight mechanism. So meditation is one way to really force yourself to go into rest and digest. And it does all the science. So if you are taking deep breaths, if you're having no distractions, if you are just thinking peacefully and not trying to think about the things that are on your to-do list, then that is why it works. But prayer works similarly. There's tons of ways that people can meditate that aren't
it's not a religion. It's more of a philosophy and a technique. Now, some people can use meditation as part of their religion, just as some people use prayer as part of theirs.
Of course, yeah.
But overall, it's a technique and a strategy to help focus your mind and your energy and your spirit. Would that be accurate?
Yes, for sure. And recently, there's been a lot of push for the term mindfulness.
Yes.
That's come up a lot more frequently because I think some people are a little hesitant with the word meditation for some reason. But mindfulness, if you want something that's a little bit less related to any sort of religious background, mindfulness techniques are all science-based, and they do the same function of bringing you from fight or flight into rest and digest.
Yes. And there's so many avenues to get those. I mean, there's a million apps that you can get on everything from self-awareness to mindfulness, meditation, you know, like you say, they're all falling into that same, under that umbrella. And I think it's important. What about kids? I know that's probably not your specialty from what I'm hearing, that you work a lot with kids. It's more high achievers and corporate and all that kind of stuff. But you were a kid and you saw the need for this kind of stuff. And it was mentors that helped you. To me, especially coming out of a situation where kids have been more isolated, we have their faces covered as much so you can't get full context when they're communicating if they're wearing a mask. And again, thank goodness we're coming through this where we got more expression. But through the isolation and through all of the changes, what have you seen as a professional in this area on how kids are affected in their mental health and well-being currently compared to maybe times in the past?
Yes. So my background is actually in kids. My master's in social work was, my concentration was children and youth risks and healthy development. I did find that a lot of that content is stuff that adults benefit from as well, because we may not have had the most healthy run through those developmental years.
We're stunted. We're stunted emotionally.
Hey, it's all right. We turn out fine. But yeah, so kids, the developmental, I like to think of it like dog years. So when you're a kid, 1 year is like way more meaningful to your overall development than it would be for an adult. So it has just been really sad to see what's been happening with the pandemic happening. It's just been so hard on their mental health. And even before the pandemic, mental health in kids and teens has been worse than it has been historically. There's some people who believe it was related to social media use and I don't know, people living farther from their family members.
Yeah, disconnecting, cyberbullying, all the rest.
Yeah, so there's lots of reasons why people thought that was occurring before, but then the pandemic hit, and so it's just, I mean, I don't even have words, honestly. It's going to impact them for the rest of their lives, but it's not discouraging because adversity equals resilience. So just because they're going through something challenging doesn't mean that they're going to be wrecked for their life. I believe that so many of them are going to be stronger mentally and have a appreciation for life that people might not have had if they didn't go through that at their age. So it's, yeah.
Do you have any tips for parents who may have noticed that their kids are a little bit different over the last year and a half? Anything that you would offer them to help them either assess their mental well-being or give them little tips to, just kind of help their little spirits heal?
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that parents can benefit from in supporting their kids' mental health is by not telling them what to do, just being there with them. It's not what you say that matters as much as how you show up to them. I cannot possibly understand what it was like to go through this at that age, whatever age they're at. So by telling them that, you're going to develop some strong rapport. I don't even know what you must be going through. This is really, really sucky. And then them hearing that being like, wow, thanks. Like, I've been trying to express that I am struggling, but no one can understand. And then just by breaking the ice by saying, I don't understand, but I care for you and I'm willing to listen to what you're going through and be there for you because I've got you. That I think is the most important thing, is just showing up for them and not trying to tell them what to do, tell them what to feel, tell them you seem to be alone in your room a lot. Maybe you should go see your friends. Like, telling them that is not going to be helpful, but maybe asking, hey, like I've noticed you've been in here alone. Like, are you missing any of your friends? What's going on? Asking them instead of
better questions.
Assuming. Yeah, because kids are just little adults who have all thoughts their thoughts are valid, their feelings are valid. They may not be how you perceive is the most relevant and helpful, but to them it's their reality.
Yes. Is there a point, and maybe you can speak to this, maybe you can't, where parents or for ourselves, where we should look, and if we're noticing a certain set of activities, thought patterns, or actions where we should say, I better take the next level and talk to someone. Any guidelines that you would share with the audience about that?
Yeah. So especially teenagers, it's going to be very hard to get the real read on the room because they just are private by nature. I was. So the biggest challenge is knowing your kid and knowing what they're saying is how they actually feel. So, I mean, use your parent instincts. You know your kid better than anybody, but also realize that they're the expert on themselves. So you have to give them space to speak who they truly are and express themselves safely without your judgment. So to me, that's the most important, because otherwise, how are you possibly going to gauge when they're in a problematic area that needs extra support versus they're just going through the normal processes of development? So,
that leads me to, you can't, like you said, your kid better than anybody else. Maybe, because sometimes as that teenager withdraws, if that parent doesn't know how to stay connected to their kid, they might not be the person that knows them the best. So I would say to really layer on what you said is spend the time to get to know your child, to listen and to hear and understand, so that you can see those things. And then you've already put that kind of relationship money in the bank, so to speak, with them. But what about for me as an adult? Is there anything that if I'm thinking or feeling a certain way that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't try to handle this myself. Maybe I should talk to someone.
Yeah. So if you are feeling out of control, in distress regularly, hopeless regularly, meaning like for longer than maybe a couple days, because natural emotions occur and those are good and healthy and have purpose. But if it's sustained and not related to a specific event, I think that's a good time to get support. And there's different kinds of support. Confiding in a friend, I think has so much power. Having people who are older than you to be your mentor, I think has so much power. Therapy is amazing and it has so much value, especially if you are at that point where you just don't know which way to go. It's a great way to just assess. If you go to therapy, you can talk with someone who's not related to your life, who has no opinion, third party, just freedom.
Yes, yes.
So that's why it's most valuable. And they're qualified, of course. But therapy has been hard for a lot of people, and it's harmed a lot of people, and in the way that they haven't felt heard or like it helped. So I encourage you that if you are really struggling and you are wanting some professional support, to realize that therapists are human and not every human is a good fit with you personality wise and in the way that they get you. So therapy is a little bit like dating. You might have to try a few first dates before you find someone who really gets you. And if you feel like your therapist doesn't get you, it's not going to help. That's absolute gold.
So, I think that's so important. Like any provider, right? Like any healthcare provider, there needs to be a connection. And I can't, man, I think what you said there is just so important and so valuable. I think as we kind of wind our topic and our conversation down today, would you finish on talking about a little bit about the company, about Victory and what it's about, what the mission is, and then how people, like who your ideal audience client is, because we've kind of covered the map from high achievers to kids and everyone in between. So talk about the company, talk about what you do and how you do it. And you've done a lot of that already, but kind of summarize it, and then how people can reach out to you if they want to connect.
Of course. So yeah, Victory Wellness is really founded on momentum, not perfection, will guide you to victory. That's my little slogan. I think that really allowing people to be human and just the fact that you're moving forward is good enough. And that works for high achievers, which is why it's my bread and butter. High achievers have a hard time stepping back and taking a deep breath. So this allows that I like to provide this momentum, not perfection, will guide you to victory, because these people are already shoving themselves forward because they love it.
Yes.
So I'm not really worried about you moving forward. I'm more worried about you being healthy and not being discouraged by your standards that are unrealistic anyways. So, so Victory Wellness is the one-on-one coaching is for adults. Victory Wellness pretty much only serves adults, but it's because of the curriculum is intense and it's meant for an adult brain who is able to verbalize and self-reflect and all of that. It is, it's really just about empowering people to choose the life they want, to be the best version of themselves with the component of self-compassion.
As an adult then, so the kids, we'll leave the kids for other specialists in this case. So Victory Wellness, we're going to keep it to the adults. Is there a type of adult where a category where you're saying, no, that's not really what I do best? So we've talked again, high achiever, but in some cases, a stay-at-home mom is the highest achiever that you can have because they're trying to run everything and keep everyone's schedules. Is there anyone that doesn't in the adult world where you would think like, if this is you, there's a better coach for you as opposed to me?
Yes. So I 100% agree that high achiever can really blanket across different areas of life, and stay-at-home moms are killer superheroes for sure. So my goodness, they can outrun me anytime. But the differentiation for me is I want them to be motivated. So as a coach, I'm not a babysitter. I'm not going to push you along and get you motivated. I want you to just not have the tools and just want a little cheerleader and the kick in the butt combo. So yeah, that's the differentiation for me is I don't want to work with people who are just trying to get some more fulfillment in their life and get some perspective or feel like they're doing something productive in their life. I want the people who I need to say, slow down, not the people I have to push.
Got it. Perfect. See, that's so helpful because as people reach out to you, again, like you said earlier, not every teacher is for every student. Not every therapist is for every client, you know,
For sure.
and all that kind of stuff. So I'm so glad you delineated that. Now, for those people who fall into the bucket of wanting and needing your support, how could they reach you?
Yeah, so my website is victory-wellness.com, and it has the ability to sign up for a free discovery call, and I'd love to do that. If you're in the Denver area, I will meet with you in person. We could do coffee and extend it an hour. I am super open to the in-person piece of things if we're in town, and but it's also available virtually. We can do the entire coaching program virtually or in person or a hybrid. But I prefer the in-person because it's just so much more impactful, I believe. And we just aren't getting enough human connection these days.
I agree.
Yeah, victory-wellness.com, and that has everything that you need.
Excellent. So this is a question that I ask every guest. So you're going to get this too. What is the biggest piece of advice that you either A, were given somewhere along the way, or B, learned that you would say is a guidepost for you that you would like to share with the audience?
That's a great question. I would say that everything that you build on your life is built on the shoulders of others. So you don't really achieve anything on your own. I've had great mentors in my life throughout, and that is why I believe I'm successful. And so if you notice in your life and you look at your life and you feel like you're really just a lone soldier, I encourage you to create a network of people that you can trust, even if it's 2 people, 1 person who you can really just be authentic and confide in. You will see the benefits of that for the rest of your life.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Tori, what a great conversation. Thank you for making us all feel better, right? And giving us a direction and understanding and some concepts about everything from neuroscience and some brain health to common sense stuff and even how we do lifestyle stuff. This has been a great conversation. By the way, if you've listened to this and it's made an impact on you or at least piqued your curiosity, reach out and ask your questions and let Tori know that you appreciate her. And also, if you wouldn't mind, share this with others, people that might need it. You can subscribe to our channel on YouTube. You can listen to the podcast, but get this message out. It's important and it will make a difference. As our podcast indicates, we want to be difference makers. So Tori, thanks for joining us. I wish you continued success, and just know that we here at Ramos are behind you 1,000%.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It was great talking to you.